Hi, and this is CS416, Group 3, Jessica Smith, Aaron Lee, Jonathan Roberts, LaRee Scott, and our topic is System Acceptance and Installation Testing. We're going to first talk system testing. System testing is used to test the software as a whole. It comes after integration testing, and in order to perform the system testing, you will need the following things: a test plan, test cases, test data. Then after those things, you'll execute the test cases and scripts. You'll then report bugs, retest all those things once fixed. And after those bugs are tested, you'll want to do regression testing to verify the impact of code changes. After you've verified that, you'll repeat the cycle until the product is ready to be deployed. After that, the last step is to sign off. An example is a car. Each component of the car is manufactured separately, like seats, steering wheels, mirrors, and etc. After manufacturing each item, it is tested independently whether it is working the way it is supposed to work. That is called unit testing. Once all the parts are assembled, the whole car needs to be checked for different aspects per the requirements defined, like if the car can be driven smoothly, its brakes work, its gears shift, and so forth. This whole effort of testing is called system testing, and it has nothing to do with integration testing. Some of the major upsides to system testing is it covers a complete end-to-end software test. Appropriate system testing can help in relieving after product goes live with issues and bugs. Unfortunately, the main downside of system testing is the requirement of time required to do a full system test. System testing is an important part of any successful testing cycle, and hence should be implemented by testers who want to deliver superior user experience. The best time to implement system testings are after completion of unit and integration testing, before the beginning of acceptance testing. I'll now turn the time over to Jonathan to talk about acceptance testing.
So after the system test, next comes the acceptance test. And this is where you validate the software in the real setting by the intended audience, and the audience being the customer or the end user. This is an absolute critical phase before you move a product into production, because only the end users are the ones that actually know the requirements and can actually prove that the software is doing what it's supposed to be doing. There are many different types of acceptance testing, but the most common is known as UAT, or user acceptance testing. Next slide. So here's the test creation plan for a UAT scenario, but the important tips are at the start of the project, or the start of thinking about UAT, that you review all the project documents, because in the project documents you'll find the charter and the requirements that you can come up with the tests. You want to identify these tests early, and when you run the tests, make sure you're doing it on real data, because it's the real data that the users will be using, and you want to make sure it works with that real data. And when you're done, receive a sign-off from the users that this is accepted as the product. Next slide. So as an example, thinking of a software developer developing, say, a web application app. You've done your unit tests and your system tests, and it's so tempting to say that you're all done, but that would be a mistake, because again, it's only the end user or customer that can definitively say that this application meets the requirements. You must make those requirements and get the users to actually use the system, test it, and when they report back that it's completed those tests, then you can move it on. And it's more often than not that as you're doing those type of tests, that they will find something that to the developer looks just fine, but to the end user, it's not acceptable. Jessica will go over the pros and cons of acceptance testing.
The upsides of implementing user acceptance testing include the fact that it encourages more interaction between developers and the end users, which can be very helpful for both parties. The more interaction that developers have with clients, the better they understand their needs, and the better the clients understand how the software is supposed to fulfill their needs. Many types of testing involve strict test cases where each step is written out to check for defects. Acceptance testing is different in that the end users are the ones who should be writing the test cases and performing in real-world scenarios to make sure that the software meets their needs. Next slide. The downsides include that acceptance testing often requires more time than the end user is willing or able to devote to it. This can make it difficult to implement acceptance testing in companies that utilize agile methodologies, because the agile method requires often and quick development and testing that may not align with the client's schedules. Next slide. User acceptance testing should be performed at the end of the development cycle so that the end user can test it in real-life scenarios once most of the major defects have been found through other tests. The client can then either accept or decline the software depending on whether it meets their standards and needs. Often due to lack of time, on the client side, the developers are the ones writing acceptance test cases. This may cause some issues because the developer may miss some real-life scenarios or details that the client would have accounted for in their testing. Therefore, in order for acceptance testing to be effective, it must be implemented correctly. Next. LaRee will now explain to us installation testing.
Installation testing is a type of quality assurance done in the software industry that focuses on what customers will need to do to install and set up the new software successfully. Flow diagrams are necessary when running installation testing because it ensures that all possible flow options are tested. You can see here an example of a flowchart used for installation testing. In the event that the user already has an earlier version of the software installed, it is important to check for the newest version available and install it in the same location without causing any errors. The use of automation scripts can reduce the amount of time and resources required to perform installation testing. The flow diagram can assist when creating your automation script. Check to ensure that the required amount of space is available before beginning installation. If there is insufficient space for the application, the installation will fail and should not begin. Simultaneous installation occurs when two different machines are installing the application at the same time. This should be done to be able to occur without causing any errors. It is important to check that the installation is complete after it is finished. You need to verify that all of the files that are needed have been installed. This can be checked manually or through automation scripts. Sometimes things go wrong during installation of new software. These scenarios need to be accounted for. Testing should check if the user will be able to restart their installation process once the situation has been corrected. One example of this would be a cell phone receiving a call while it is installing the application. Testing should verify that the installation will be able to continue without errors. If any registry changes are required during installation, a check should be completed after installation is complete to ensure that the changes have taken effect as desired. Uninstallation is just as important to the user as installation. A check should be done on the installation procedures to see if the software is effectively removed from the system without impacting the surrounding environment. I was able to find a case study published in the Journal of Chemistry and Chemical Engineering that was done to test the installation testing methodology of Plan, Do, Check, Act against installation testing done without a defined methodology. In order to perform the installation testing, scientific software was installed on 6 separate machines. The first 3 machines underwent installation testing without using the methodology, and the last 3 machines were tested with the methodology. The study concluded that the testing done with the Plan, Do, Check, Act methodology was more effective and resulted in a better installation of the software. There are several benefits to performing installation testing. Because test cases are used, it's possible to ensure that all areas of the test software are tested, provided you use a thorough and complete test cases. Because software is a vital part of many industries, it is beneficial to ensure that the software performs as expected. Good results on installation testing increase the chances that the software will operate as expected. Output from installation testing is very informative and helps developers improve their products. Installation testing provides an opportunity to ensure that the software components are all up to date and to prompt the user to update any outdated components. But one downside to installation testing is that the results are at the mercy of your test cases. If your test cases are not thorough enough, it is possible that bugs will go undetected. There is interaction between the software and the environment into which it is installed. There is the possibility that good software that is installed well will still fail installation testing due to interference from the existing environment. It can be very time-consuming to determine the problem in these cases. Because installation testing is done late in the development process, it is possible that many bugs still exist within the system. This could potentially return complicated and difficult to remedy errors from the installation testing phase. And finally, installation testing can take a lot of time to complete in some cases, and time is a valuable resource. Installation testing is done after the completion of the development phase of the project as the last step before delivering to the user. Its purpose is to ensure that the product will operate as expected on the system for which it is intended, and that the installation functions without causing harm to the system where it is installed. In order for installation testing to be effective, the test cases used need to be well designed. There are companies that can be contracted to perform installation testing on your behalf, such as Logix Guru, located in Murrysville, Pennsylvania. It can be beneficial to utilize one of these companies because they already have existing strategies in place and personnel experience in installation testing practices. Next. Thank you for taking the time to view our presentation. If you're interested in finding more information about system acceptance or installation testing, please take a look at our cited resources.